All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is I Name This Segment Later, GTG Spits That Grease, so on and so forth. Title forever in the works. So if the title hasn't given, if that same title hasn't given me away yet, I wanted to speak to you guys about admiration or animosity. Darksydephil's fascination and or obsession with LTG. Now, I don't know when this is going to come out. This might come out, months later, probably even before the holidays, depending on how this goes. But it'll probably come out a few months afterwards. I'm recording this in August, but you guys may not see it until either late August or you may not see it until a month after that, depending on where you're at in the current timeline. But where we're at currently is DSP still raging at LTG. LTG's kind of sort of moved on. He did a LowTierGod at the time that I'm recording this. He did a Twitter DM leak. Pretty sure it's from Twitter. I don't think it was from Discord. He did a Twitter DM leak, and he dropped pretty much all the times that DSP has been trying to reach out to him over the years. Well, over a particular year, I think. It may have been even over a few years. I'm not sure if he dumped everything. And Billy Mitchell jumped in there because that's what Billy do, because DSP is a prime target for Billy. And Billy is a troll, and that's what a troll does, is you got to pick and choose your targets and whatnot, and you usually choose a target who's already wounded. So, Billy's just doing what Billy does. And funny enough, I wonder if that's going to actually become something in the future, Billy Mitchell versus DSP. I might do a video on that. Anywho, so LowTierGod dropped some DMs. I think DSP responded to it. I still don't think anything else is going to really come out of this. It's just going to be pop shots from here on out. But for the most part, LTG's kind of just moved on. If the money is not going to pop up, he's not interested. Kino Casino sounded like they were willing to become the bank. And then they're like, maybe we probably shouldn't do this. I don't know why they're worried about their respectability at this point. But so on and so forth. Kino Casino is a brand. And there's no need to take any unnecessary risks when you're dealing with a brand, especially if it's your brand. So that's a thing. So back to the original point, is it animosity or is it admiration? And what is it that drives DSP's obsession with LTG at the moment? Well, to be honest, I'd have to say it's probably all of the above. I think let's look at it this way. The core of the DSP/LowTierGod situation, most people would tell you, oh, well, LTG is just the black DSP. You know what I'm saying? Or on the other side of that coin, oh, well, DSP is just the white version of LTG. The two sides of the same coin. Obviously, the black DSP situation, or namesake, if you will, I think is probably the better term for it, came up first. And that it's a guy who rages at fighting games and whatnot, and he talks shit about other people. Very simple observations. And so the most simplest thing will easily become an easy comparison. If you look deeper, though, there's not as much correlation as it may seem. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you really want to go on the fighting game angle, let's do that. There's a lot of people who don't like LTG in the FGC. There's a shitload of people. There's a few of those people are people in a position of power. Let me give you an example. So let's take Ultra David and John Choi, and James Chen. Let's do James Chen instead. Actually, that's a better comparison between the two of them. At least from what I've seen, Ultra David never was amused by LTG and his antics and how boisterous he was, and this, that, and third. Now, there's a variety of reasons for that. One of them, in particular, comes down to a very interesting story that Ultra David said many, many years ago, before LTG even came on the scene, where how he would talk about when he went to his local arcades, he was so concerned by the demographic of people in there, he felt compelled to always stash money and stuff like that in his socks or his shoes, despite the fact that he's never had a problem with anybody ever. You know what I mean? And that same mindset, I guess, is probably the best term for it. He, as the FGC grew, he became a bit, some allege that he may have become even a bit more paranoid. And even though he learned how to kind of deal with it and whatnot, keep in mind, he wasn't a young guy when all this was going on. I mean, he was, but you know, we're talking about somebody who's well into his 20s at this point, if he has a credit card, at the very least. He exhibited a certain type of behavior. With that being said, and based off of that, and just some other things that I've heard about Ultra David over the years, his frustration with LTG and what he thought LTG represented and how he thought it might have been a problem for the FGC moving forward, as in being profitable, being marketable. David has exhibited these type of complaints quite a bit. Going back to that FGC reality show that LTG was on.
I just gotta thank the trolls for this. I gotta thank the trolls for this. I can't believe that I'm actually here.
It means absolutely everything to me.
I just gotta thank the trolls.
All right, so this part right here, when you come in, they say, all right, act like you're super excited to get into the house.
This man literally said, I gotta thank the trolls. I gotta thank the trolls. Why the fuck are you bitching, man?
Absolutely everything.
Why the fuck are you bitching about the trolls,
like,
bro?
This was like one of my rooms, right? And they like set the whole shit up crazy. They put Street Fighter in the back, had lighting. They morphed my whole house to a set.
I just gotta thank the trolls for this. I gotta thank the trolls.
You listen to this?
I can't believe that I'm actually here.
That shit tells you
Bro,
everything.
I faked that whole part.
That shit tells you everything, bro. That's not fake. That's not fucking fake. You fucking liar. That's not fake,
It was
bro.
like, look. They said, when you come in the house, guys, act excited. So, LowTierGod, when you come in the house, just act excited. Just act like you never seen this house before.
That is cap.
It's phenomenal. I said, all right, bet.
Shut the fuck up, bro. You know you lying, man.
Just gotta thank the trolls for this. I gotta thank the trolls for this. I can't believe that I'm actually here.
LTG has
Vain.
Briefly, and even after he got eliminated, he was kept on, and because of the entertainment factor, and most of the people that were on the show actually had a problem or had some type of conflict with LTG at one time or another. Guilty is a pretty good example. I think LTG had talked shit to them at one time or another, and then if you guys know your history on that, they were accused of being something of a predator themselves. I'm not sure if the grooming allegations ever stuck, but Guilty ended up getting themselves up and out of there only a few years later. And then you have what's that guy's name? Hold on a second. Okay. It's probably just a second for you, but it took me a minute. It took me a minute because I ended up getting into some sidetrack shit. Anyway, the show itself actually was called Eleague the Challenger. This was for Street Fighter V, talking like 7 or 8 years ago. The person that I was thinking about is obviously Rob TV. He's known as Hollywood Rob now, so on and so forth. He ain't sat there and bulked up and whatnot. He's made his rounds in certain not just social media avenues, but in just media in general and whatnot. He's actually done pretty well for himself. He moves real silent, like, but he's doing pretty good for himself. Anyway, but yeah, it was the Eleague the Challenger for Street Fighter V. That's like 7 years ago. On top of that, I actually found videos. Now that I look at all these guys when compared to LowTierGod, LowTierGod had a lot of coverage here. He got more coverage than pretty much anybody, even though he was the first one to be eliminated, because he ain't talked shit to most of these people at one time or another and whatnot. And even though most people took it in just fun, Rob TV actually had a problem. He really felt a certain type of way about that shit. I may actually do a story on this later, now that I think about it, because there's some interesting silly shit here if you think about it. But a lot of these dudes had a lot of issues and problems and shit over that. Holy shit, that might actually be a nice little gold mine to go back over. Anywho, point being is that LTG and his, as it pertains to his time in the FGC compared to Darksydephil's, LTG got a lot more done. He got way more coverage, and even for the people who don't like him, Ultra David being an example, Rob TV felt a certain type of way, despite the fact most people would make the argument that Rob TV made his name off of LTG, given the animosity that he showed in Eleague. Not to say that it was real, it was just playing it up for the camera possibly, but it was enough that it was able to sell it. DSP may very well try to look at that and be like, oh, well, that's a similar situation to what I was in, or some of the beefs that I had.
Jonathan Moran?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. I wanted to present to you X-Play's Best of E3 award for the best surprise at E3, Watch Dogs. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
What do you think exactly sets this game apart from all the other games we've seen out there? Well, it's amazing. Congratulations. I gotta get back to my show.
Okay.
You get back to yours. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
So on and so forth. Why does he have more than what I have? You know what I'm saying? How was he able to accomplish more when I laid down the groundwork, or I was doing exactly what he was doing? I did it before him. So that's kind of where the LTG DSP comparisons kind of start and stop. You know what I'm saying? You got two loudmouths who go ahead and spout their bullshit, but they handled it in a completely different way. In that, LTG was willing to stand 10 toes and actually travel out to fucking start to actually, you know, get confronted or confront some of the people that had problems with him, at least in the FGC. And then it usually resulted in a match or whatever, whether he won or lost, whatever. And then they kept it pushing. That's the whole reason why he made it on the Challenger show in the first place, because he was talking mad shit during Street Fighter 4's lifespan, and it brought coverage, which is what it was. You know what I'm saying? But Ultra David, actually I found a couple of videos where Ultra David was incredibly upset. I was gonna say critical, but critical is really not the term. He was very upset at the fact that LTG was even voted up there, and then he was able to actually stay an extra week after he got eliminated. But yet again, that was for the entertainment value. And that, and I surmise they weren't expecting LTG to get eliminated as early as he did. So I think DSP's animosity comes from the fact that I laid the groundwork. I did what that guy was doing. Why didn't I get all of that press or whatever? Or why don't people look at me the way that, you know, why don't they look at DSP the way that they look at LTG now? Now, let's get into his admiration for LTG. I think yet again it falls back to he takes a lot of shit, I take a lot of shit, and whatnot. We're comparable, I guess you could say, in that particular situation. But that's ironic because people make those same comparisons between DSP and Wings of Redemption. He doesn't want to acknowledge that. People make that same comparison between him and Keemstar, theoretically. He doesn't want to go ahead and take any comparisons to that because he don't respect them. You know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, the reason why DSP's been on LTG for as long as he has is the fact that he does respect LTG. As I think he actually respects him as a person, not just who he presents online. You know what I'm saying? I think he does actually respect him, and I think he does admire him. And I think he wishes he was more like him. Because keep in mind, DSP is Polish. He's not Italian. He's Polish. And whatnot. DSP has an identity problem. He always has. You know what I'm saying? He clings on to, you know what I'm saying? He could be he could be 138th fucking Italian, and he would still call himself Italian before everything else because he's ashamed of everything else. When he looks at Italian, he looks at the food, he looks at the culture, he looks at the Sopranos, and that's what he wants. End of story. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't look at Polish history because you don't know Polish history, honestly. But there's a lot to be respected about the Polish. But DSP don't know that shit because he wasn't exposed to it, and or there wasn't enough people around him, and or the Polish have not had enough coverage mainstream that makes it cool. And that's where DSP's problem has always lied. And yet again, that goes back to DSP's admiration for LTG. He looks at LTG and he's like, he's cool. Yeah, people hate him, but he's cool. But then again, not everybody hates LTG. Sure, he has a hate mob online, and deservedly so. LTG's a piece of shit. For sure. No one will ever take that away. Fuck him. But there are people who think he's entertaining. There are people, even amongst some of his haters, who think he's entertaining. They know he's a piece of shit. He is, by far. And he may even be far worse than DSP if you look at it from certain angles or circumstances, especially. But there are people who find him entertaining. There are people who find him likable. You know what I'm saying? From some of the interactions that I've read about, and even some of the people that I know who have met LTG in person, they say it's like Hallmark cards and bubblegum. You know what I'm saying? That dude's a cool guy, supposedly. Anyway, I've never met him, but I know people who have, and they say, yeah, you meet him out there in the wild. You know what I'm saying? He ain't scrunching around and shit. He ain't fucking paranoid or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You walk up to him, hey man, and you shake his hand, and he'll shake your hand. You know what I'm saying? He seems to be a really cool dude. When he was going to Evo and some of these other FGC events back when he was doing that, people used to approach him all the time, shit, for autographs, pictures, whatever. Now, I know he has this thing now where you got to follow him on all social medias and all that fucking lame ass shit. But before all that, you know what I'm saying, he shook hands and did all that. And truth be told, I think if he still went to events now, I don't think that's really a requirement. I think that's just something he puts out there for rage bait. But who could say? So I think DSP he has, I guess you could say, to DSP, he has certain qualities that DSP wishes that he had. But then again, DSP is a racist, so you can't wish to be a black man. That's weird, right, Phil? So that's the thing. Now let's get into DSP's obsession, which is clearly a very unhealthy obsession at this particular point with LTG. I want to tell you it stems from, and it's actually alluded to, or it's grouped up with, if you will, in the same category as you see with Justin Wong and like Maximilian. You know what I mean? Whatever you may think of LTG's presence, right, in the FGC or online in general, it's far more than what DSP has. And if there's anything that history has taught us, DSP hates people who have more than what he has, especially if he can't get a piece of what they had. And I think the reason why it seems so pronounced currently in 2025 is because DSP, in his own mind, in air quotes, he ain't sat there and snaked the Kino Casino. He ain't sat there and conned them for money and support in the short term, obviously. And he came out, in his own mind anyway, as the winner. Now, clearly that's not what happened, but whatever. Let him indulge in his delusions. So he's looking at LTG being like, well, hey, if I can get over on Kino Casino, there's no shit, you black. You black. So there's no reason why I can't get over on you. So either play my game, or I'm going to dog walk you and whatnot, and eventually you're going to have to play my game. Now, I don't know where DSP got that from. You know what I'm saying? But then again, racism is just ignorant and stupid anyway. So it is what it is. But I don't know where that exactly came from. But, you know, that's what he believes in. But and so with that being said, I'm bringing up the racism aspect. And most of you being like, well, why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? That's not fair. Yada, 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 yada. He ain't trying to dog walk Justin. He ain't trying to dog walk Max. He ain't trying to dog walk Alex Valle, James Chen. You know what I'm saying? He isn't going after Gutex anymore. You know what I'm saying? He don't have shit to say about Mike Ross. He ain't dog walking none of them cats. You know what I mean? And that's one of the reasons why is because they prestige. But then there's another real obvious reason too that he don't want to go after none of them. But he think he can go after LTG and shit. So it's like he's not keeping the same energy for them guys as he is for this guy. And because DSP looks at him as like a soft target, like a duty, he think he can go ahead and say and do whatever the fuck he wants. And the fact that he can't, DSP is not a very good talker. Like he doesn't have the gift of gab as people maybe back in 2017 or 2018 used to say he did. Because he can't out-talk LTG, right? And he can't roast them, he can't grill them or anything like that. He just sounds like some jealous fucking ex-girlfriend. That's how it comes off. I mean, at times, that shit sounds manic. He sounds manic. You know what I'm saying? When he's sending out some of these tweets and shit. Tough guy all day and have nothing to back it up. Your typical internet bullshit. You don't think LTG hasn't seen that shit? There was dudes in the fucking LTG troll community that really wanted the box with LTG. Like, for real, for real. At first, it was in the ring. And then dudes were willing to just come up to the GMC or to the Goodwill that he was working at or volunteering at or whatever the fuck at that time and was willing to throw hands. So he isn't worried about someone like fucking DSP and shit. That doesn't make any sense to anybody. So DSP is going to do it because he doesn't have anything else. It's his last line of defense, I guess, is trying to run his mouth and hope that it generates enough energy, if you will, to go ahead and turn it into something later. Because if DSP can't convince you, if he can't take the knee and try to almost castrate himself in front of you to do something, then that's when we resort to the anger and the frustration. And that's when you hear the bullshit threats, you hear the bullshit shit talk, and so on and so forth. I mean, you're 43 years old. You should know better at this point. You should know better at this point. And the fact that DSP don't know better because he's perpetually a child. LTG is going to win in that situation. The fact that, and that's kind of the craziest thing about DSP and his jealousy and his envy and his obsession with some of these people online, is that he can make some of the worst people on the internet look reasonable. That's a talent that's only reserved to a few people when you think about that in the grand scheme of things. And so when you have some of the most irate, irrational individuals telling you, hey, you need to calm down. Hey, you need to try to better yourself in your situation long before you start trying to eat off somebody else's plate or even try to come to our table or whatever, that says something if you really think about that. And I think that in itself frustrates DSP even more because he comes out looking worse. You know what I'm saying? He comes out looking worse. It comes from, okay, we're two FGC guys to now we're two lol cows, to where people are actually looking at LTG and being like, damn, he actually seems kind of reasonable. He may actually be handling the situation in the most responsible manner given the circumstances. And it makes DSP look weird. But DSP is weird. That 220 thing isn't just a meme. I mean, it is a meme, right? But it's actually a much closer, big ups to Darksydephil. It's much closer, or it harkens far more, or it rings, I should say. It rings far louder in reality than even I think some of us give credit to now, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And yet again, I think that scares DSP. Because DSP is quick to say, people are crazy, people are mental, people need to have the white coats come get them, so on and so forth. And yet, DSP is actually the one with all the problems. And I think DSP is scared that that projection is going to eventually turn into reality. What he hasn't figured out just yet is that is his reality. And LTG is just another example of it. It's another example of DSP's shortcomings socially and his inability to accept rejection. Which, if you guys know your lore, when DSP said that he was obsessing about this girl, and he was on this cocktail of medication, and he said that he was getting scared that he may do something drastic, whether to himself or to whoever that girl was. This thing with LTG is no different. You know what I'm saying? Instead of DSP actually, IRL crashing out on LTG, because that's not going to happen, he's just doing it on the internet. Anything that DSP has done in the past, he's going to do, or he has done, or he is doing now. It's just his pattern of behavior. You know what I'm saying? There's no getting around that. It's easy to identify, I think. So I think and then he's been on LTG for 3 years. His what he has is clearly an obsession, gay or not. But there's certainly more there. He's seen, meaning DSP has seen how much mileage other people have gotten out of LTG, and he wants the same. And the reality is LTG is not going to give it to him. And LTG even admitted that, hey, I respond to a lot of stupid shit online that I shouldn't. And that's one of the reasons why DSP is getting the type of is made the type of head weight that he's made so far. That in some ways you kind of have to respect. I don't have to respect him on that shit. I can give LTG a little bit of credit for at least being self-aware enough to identify that hey, the only reason why this is persisting the way it's persisting, at least now in the current day, is because I'm giving DSP this type of light. I don't need to do that shit because you shouldn't give peons light like that. And it's true, but it don't really even matter because LTG is still winning the exchange. So there you go. And according to DSP, as far as I've heard, He says he's going to continue to do this next year, which I already said he was going to. So this isn't going to stop. And as long as, if LTG completely goes dark on him, no pun intended, I think you'll hear DSP get even more manic, because despite the back and forth that you've heard so far, and really the public humiliation, if not a public ritual that you're seeing LTG put DSP through, if you're DSP, you're looking at it as, we're building a connection. There's a connection between us, and you can deny it all you want, but it's there. And as long as I can get you to keep responding to me, for good or bad, you have to, that connection only continues to grow. Now that's a sick way of looking at anything, to be honest. But that's how DSP perceives that. Because remember, whether good publicity or bad publicity is publicity to someone like DSP. So, you know what I'm saying? The fact that he even has some type of line of dialogue with LTG is enough for him to keep doing it. And I think that's the scary part, to be honest with you. That really speaks to DSP's psychosis, and it speaks to him it speaks to where he's at. Someone who craves attention from people that he likes, he respects, or who he considers normal, and he can't get it. So his only fallback is all these dense and fucking idiots and shit that he has to deal with on a day-to-day basis, who he begs for money. You know what I'm saying? Who are just as broke as he is, if not worse. So it is what it is. But then, ladies and gentlemen, let's go into a much larger picture, and then let's call this a wrap. But what does that speak to someone like a Justin Wong and a Maximilian, right? Like, those two guys kind of dodged the bullet. Like, yeah, fucking Justin Wong sat there and cleaned the fuck up out of DSP 10-0. That was to be expected, so no one's surprised by that. Is fucking Justin getting, you know what I'm saying, multiple fucking DMs? Hey, let's play again. Hey, let's do a podcast. Hey, you know, if you ever want to collab with anything, is he getting that? Is Max getting that? I think Max is, or I think he was at the very least. I don't think Max responds to any of his Twitter DMs unless unless it's something of importance, obviously. I think other than that, that's not a thing. And if I remember correctly, I think DSP even tweeted at Max and said that his DMs weren't open. Which, if you're Max, I don't blame him. You shouldn't have your DMs open like that anyway. There's ways of getting a hold of Max, but Twitter DMs are probably not the best way of going about that. Anyway, I think he obsessively messages a lot of these people. He's kind of already admitted it, that he's reached out to a bunch of people in the FGC, and apparently a bunch of people on YouTube for collaborations, and no one's answering him back. LTG is giving you the public face of what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? So just imagine what some of these other guys that DSP is envious of, jealous of, or just hates, what they go through. You know what I'm saying? And what they're dealing with. And that leads to a much larger question, ladies and gentlemen, on DSP's unhealthy, very unhealthy, relationship with the internet, and more importantly, internet hate. Because like Wings, these idiots were raised on the internet. Chronically, I should say. They were raised on the internet to be chronic internet users, if you will. And now look at them. You guys can't socialize a lick. I mean, Wings arguably is a little bit better at socializing, but he's just as ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Just because you read something smart on Reddit doesn't make you smart. You know what I'm saying? That's not a case. And I guarantee you, because I'm pretty confident about how this goes, Wings just reads stuff on Reddit that's highly rated or highly thumbs up, or not thumbs up, but you know what I'm saying, that are highly rated posts and whatnot, because it makes him feel smart and it makes him feel like he's part of the conversation. Pseudo-intellectualism, if you will. DSP is no different, because he does the exact same thing for Twitter. So make of that what you will. But anyway, what do you guys think, and how do you guys feel? I think that DSP is suffering from the sunken cost fallacy, as well as he's probably just deep in his obsession at this point, and he can't let it go. You know what I'm saying? And in some ways, and this is really sad, and not sad in a pathetic sort of way. Well, it is sad in a pathetic sort of way, but it's sad just from the human conditioning standpoint, I guess. It's sad that DSP looks down upon LTG because of the color of his skin, not because of his actions, but because of the color of his skin. And yet, He's obsessively chasing after him because he not feels, he knows, he recognizes that LTG still has more than what he has. And he feels that not only that he should have that, but I'll go even further and say he believes that he's deserving of it. And that's really, really fucking sad. That's really, really fucking sad. The DSP ain't gone through the majority of his life degrading people like LTG for the simplest shit. And now you ain't spent your later years chasing someone like that around because you identify or recognize they have more than you do. Now you're getting to the point where, oh, you're in the ghetto. Oh, you're broke. Oh, you're this. You're Section 8. This, that. Yo, Phil, real talk. Just call that dude the N-word, hard off. Just do it and get it out your system, man. Just go ahead and do it. You're almost there. At this particular point, you're almost there. You're this close. Just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. I'll tell you right now, you're not going to get a response. Not at LTG. Not like that. To be honest with you, if anything, you're just going to turn more people against you. And I think innately you understand that. But it's very clear that you're slipping. Just go ahead and call him it and get it done. Just call him the hard R. It's not something it's not like it's not in your vocabulary. It's not like it's not something you're comfortable with saying. Just go ahead and say it and get it out the way, man. Just get it done. Just get it done. And then let the chips fall where they may. You're on your last chip with LTG, basically. You ain't got shit else to bring to the table. So go ahead and do it. But see, you don't want to, though, because you're not going to come out the hero at the end of that shit. You can't play victim when you're throwing racist epithets at people. But you might as well do it. You might as well go ahead and get it done. You don't have not another thing left, to be honest with you, but that. And I think that bothers you more than anything. Because DSP puts himself out here like he's some type of pseudo-intellectual. Now he's scraping but not even the bottom of the barrel. We're under the barrel. We're under the goddamn barrel to try to get a response, to try to get something going. But, you know what I'm saying, make of that what you will. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. Catch you guys for the next one of these, whenever that may be, hopefully sooner than later. It's kind of what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when you're overly reliant on other people, right? DSP has always lived his life depending on other people. That's why he begs the way he does. That's why he's so comfortable with it. That's why it's something that he innately does, and he doesn't see a problem with it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he can't stop himself from doing it. And LTG is just kind of another example of that. You know what I'm saying? DSP has a need, and he needs someone else to fulfill it. That I understand that sounds a little bit. I understand how that sounds. I'm gonna let that stay the way it is. It is what it is. But that's how DSP, that's how Phil Burnell, that's how Darksydephil, that's how Dierector works. If he wants something, and he needs something, then someone else needs to basically, you know what I'm saying, get on that to make it happen. And he's run into a couple of situations, especially in the FGC, where he can't make these people do what he wants. And it's not about, oh, well, is this a partnership? No, you're going to do this, which is utilitarianism. If you don't serve a purpose, you're just in the way. But DSP also has a deep-seated problem with rejection. And he never got over it. And now that problem has become a condition. And when DSP doesn't get what he wants, he goes through these different steps. And you're seeing it with LTG in real time. But yet again, why doesn't he do that with Justin? Why doesn't he do that with Max? Well, he lashed out at them. You know what I'm saying? He definitely tried to shit on them. He tried to muddy their reputations, right? But he didn't go the race angle with either one of those guys. Why is that? But he feels comfortable doing it with LTG, though. LTG is not a victim here. DSP isn't either. Fuck them both. They can both rest in piss as far as I'm concerned. But yet again, if you're going to keep that energy, you keep it for everybody. You don't just pick and choose. Anyway, take care of yourselves, people. Later.